Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Michael Daly, the host of the Real 1% podcast. And today we got a special day ahead of us. If you guys are listening in or going to catch us recording, we got our first dynamic duo. We got a Navy and a Marine husband and wife dynamic duo. We're going to be talking about the Naval Academy. We're talking about FBI. We're talking about Google. We're talking about pilots. We're talking about authors. We're talking about entrepreneurs. We're talking about catching a one-way flight to Denmark, catching over 15 countries in 2 months. I mean, they got me their intro. We got Matt and Shannon today. I don't even know how to condense it all for you guys, but you guys don't want to miss this episode. We're gonna be talking about getting a phone call and saying, hey, you're pretty much done with the Marine Corps after getting in a motorcycle accident. On top of that, a couple months before that, getting married and then having a kid, all in the matter of 3-4 months. First and foremost, we got Shannon. She's a Naval Academy graduate, and she was awarded the Surface Warfare Officer. She medically separated in 2018. She also was in some accidents as well, and that sort of changed the trajectory of her time in the military. She worked as a consultant at Google. She worked with the FBI. She said she was miserable. I wonder why. I could be a rapper, man. I just rhymed right there. You know what I'm saying? And she was laid off in 2023. She embraced the opportunity to travel the world with her husband. When we got my man Matthew, he was a Marine Corps pilot, wanted to do it ever since he saw the Marines flying with his grandfather. His grandfather also served. Over 11 years in service, 5 countries, 4 specialties, ended in a motorcycle accident. Accidents are prone with them. I'm glad they're here to tell their story today, and they're okay. Like I said, they're writing a book for dads and partners during pregnancy to talk to over 20 couples, I believe, in 15 countries. He's passionate about being a good husband and dad, and he wants to help others. They're true leaders. I could keep going because they gave me a whole book for their summary and their bio. But without further ado, Shannon and Matt, how y'all doing today?
Good. Thank you so much for having us on.
No problem. This is the first time I got a husband and wife duo, so you guys are going to go ahead and set the standard, and hopefully more people can follow in your footsteps and come on, share their story, and change the narrative right now for the veteran community. So whoever wants to go first, we could do a 1-2 take. Why did you guys join the military? I know I touched on it a little bit, but I want to hear it from you guys and for the viewers as well.
Ladies first?
You want to go first?
You want me to go first?
Yeah,
okay.
perfect.
All right. My name is Matthew Morris, former Captain United States Marine Corps. My reason for joining the service, when I was about 10 years old, my grandfather took me to an air show in Fort Worth, Texas. And as we were walking around, I came eye level with the 3 barrels of an AH-1 Cobra. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know where it came from. But at that moment, looking up at my grandpa and up at this war machine, I said, that one, I want to do that. And that set me on a trajectory. When I was 15, I joined the United States Naval Sea Cadet Corps, operated out of Fort Worth, Texas. And I did every single aviation-based training you could there. That funneled me into Texas A&M University. I joined the Corps of Cadets, and that prepped me for my time in the Marine Corps. Commissioned out of Texas A&M in 2012. Joined the Marine Corps as a flight contract and completed flight school on September 11th, 2015. Yeah, that was a big day.
Ironic date, right?
And then from there, the rest is history. Flew in the Marine Corps for a number of years, transitioned from the Marine Corps to communication strategy and operations, and then ended my time as an operations and the information environment planner.
What about you, Shannon?
Yeah, so my story is not as cool. I got a flyer in the mail when I was a junior in high school and had no idea what I wanted to do when I grew up. The flyer happened to be for the Naval Academy, and my parents really like to take me on educational spring break trips. So if you can imagine, I grew up in the suburbs of Illinois and was fairly sheltered from the world, but education was very important to them. So we went on a road trip, went to DC. I was like, hey, what is this thing? My mom actually thought it was a correctional facility, but we went ahead and we took the tour. And during the tour, I got pulled aside for an admissions briefing, kind of fell in love with the concept of, hey, here's a guaranteed job for 5 years after college. It's completely paid for. Join the Navy, see the world. And so I applied and I got in early admission. So I kind of didn't look back, but also didn't have a great idea about what I was getting into. Needless to say, it was the shock of my life when I got to the academy, but ended up graduating and commissioning into the surface warfare community, and spent basically my entire career doing that, except for the last year where I did a lot of public affairs work instead.
Okay, and you said growing up, you said good grades weren't an option, so they were pretty much mandatory in your household, right?
Yes, I'm half Taiwanese, so there was no option to get anything below an A. So fortunately for me, going into the college application process, I did have kind of a head start, because if I got a B, well, I probably wouldn't be here today if I did.
Oh, damn. So what did your family think about when you wanted to go to the Naval Academy? Were they down with that, or did they say, heck no, doctor, lawyer, something along that lines?
Yeah, I was slated to go to the University of Illinois and become an engineer, because it was 2 hours away from home, and mom and dad could check up on me every weekend if they wanted to. So mom wasn't thrilled at all, but she also knew that I was stubborn enough that she couldn't tell me no. She didn't actually reveal until I think after I graduated that she had no desire for me to go there. Like, why would her only baby girl want to go to the academy? But my dad, on the other hand, he was pretty proud of it. His dad served and he was going to serve, but did not have the opportunity to do so because of just some life changes during that time. So I think me going in was an honor to the family, but it also wasn't really spoken about at that point.
One more question for you before we get you off the hot seat and turn it over to Matt. You said you wanted to quit on the first day of school, right? Talk a little bit about that and what really got you through those 4 years.
Yeah, so I remember crying my eyes out after the induction day. So when I got to see my parents before the final goodbye, I told them I wanted to quit. Actually, during the summer, I started the process of out processing from the academy, because it was too much. I came from the suburbs where I didn't really have exposure to a lot of things. My physical fitness, I was a figure skater and a dancer growing up, so I wasn't exactly cut out to do push-ups, sit-ups, or run a mile and a half. So it was extremely tough for me. But during that process, I was pulled aside and actually mentored by a senior at the time who he basically motivated me back into staying. And there was also a Marine '06 who spoke on the phone with my dad. And I think the two of them were kind of co-conspirators, because he dismissed me from his office and I got to talk to my dad. And my dad told me that I actually didn't have a home to go home to at that point. So they kind of did the tough love back, forced me into a corner. That, combined with the motivation that came from the senior who actually showed empathy, which was very few and far between for that time, convinced me to stay. And at that point, when I went back to just the normal summer, I finished it out and knew that my decision was already made. There was no other option. I was going to go through with it, and I was going to succeed on the other side.
Okay, so you had a mind shift switch, and pretty much just made it through with the help of mentees or mentors. So that's good to hear and good to know. I'm sure you probably did the same thing once you got to be an upperclassman, and probably got some people underneath your wing and made it happen for them as well. Matt, for you, was it pretty much fly or bust? You know what I'm saying? Because it's flight. Isn't it pretty hard to get to become a pilot in the Marine in any branch of service? And I know a lot of people wash out of it, but what was your mindset for you going in?
The summer of my sophomore into junior year, when I was slated to go to officer candidate school, the week before I left, we had to go into the officer selection office, and they hand you your packet of stuff. And the first thing on the very top of the packet is what kind of contract you are. Are you an air contract? Are you a ground contract? Are you a law contract? And the gal sitting behind the desk, she was 22 years Navy, saltiest veteran ever. Absolutely loved her. She hands me my packet and says, "Go ahead and read through this, make sure it's good to go." I take it, I open it. Very first on the top line, it says ground contract. And I don't even go to the next line. I lay it back on the desk and I said, you spelled air contract wrong. And she takes it and she looks at it and she goes, oh, that's just admin. Don't worry about it. Take your paperwork. You'll go finish OCS and we'll fix it on the back end. I, as tactfully as I could, as a 19-year-old candidate, looked back at her and said, dearest Ashley, please make this correction or I am walking out this door and I'm going to go join the Army.
Those are exact words, I'm sure, that you said, right?
Just like that. And maybe paraphrasing. I don't know. It was a while ago. And she, we bantered back and forth for a little bit. And I said, I'm not going to go. I'm not under contract right now. The Marine Corps doesn't own me yet. And I signed up to fly. And she huffed and puffed a little bit and said, fine, but I want you to know this is going to be a big thing. And I said, okay. And I sit down across from the desk. I'm in my chair. I hear the printer go. Brr, brr. She comes back. All she had to do was change the title from ground contract to air contract on the Word document.
Big things. That was a big thing, man.
Handed that to me. I signed the paperwork, and a week later, I was in Quantico, Virginia.
So once you got there, how was it?
Grueling. The flight program through Navy, Marine Corps, and Coast Guard is one of the highest washout rates of any MOS in the Marine Corps. And it's just because from start to finish, you're in school, you're getting the equivalent of a master's degree in aviation for between 2 and 4 years, depending on what platform you went to. So I went rotary. My choice from the very beginning was always Cobras. And that is one of the shorter pipelines. Rotary is one of the shorter pipelines. If you go fixed wing jet now, your buddy just got it. He's going to Kingsville. Mm-hmm. He's going to be in flight school for 4 years.
That's crazy. And you probably got to commit like 8 years of a contract. That way you get the training and then give 4 years at least once you get out, right? Something like that.
So the way the contracting worked, and mind you, I got my wings over a decade ago, or almost a decade ago at this point. It might have flexed a little bit. It was 8 years after you got your wing. So if you're in school for years, that doesn't start until you get your wings and go to the rack and become a replacement air crew. So
like 12 years in at that time, you have to commit almost 12 years of time. You might as well just say you're going to do 20 almost.
Yeah.
I think that's the point.
Yeah. And that's kind of the push on it. Right now you'll read a couple of articles. There's a good one just posted in the Military Times about why pilots are leaving the service and going to other jobs. And the comparison was for the hours that you put in as a captain. If you were paid an hourly rate, you would make more working as a Chick-fil-A manager.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, right. But that's across the board for most of your MOSs. So
what was the hardest part for you for the whole program? Anything stick out in specific, or was it just all pretty much grueling and one day at a time, take it like that, and that's how it went for you?
It was hard, but I loved it. Like it was. You lived in a house with 3 or 4 other pilots. One guy'd be a little farther ahead of you. One guy'd be a little bit behind you. And every night, 6 nights a week, you're all sitting around the kitchen table just quizzing each other. Hey, who did you fly with? I flew with this guy. All right, this is what you're going to need to prep for. Running through emergency procedures, running through weapon systems. And when you're immersed in it, you don't hate it. It sucks, but right. How many things in the military or in the Marine Corps do you do that suck, but you love it when you're in the middle of it?
That's true. And plus you loved it as a kid. Like that was your passion. So for you, it's not like, you were going to get, a job that you already hated. You were doing what you loved to do and what you wanted to do. So probably made it a lot easier for you to stick it through.
That's a big 10 for.
You would have got that ground contract if you would have washed out. So you were like air or bust, man. I don't blame you. And I don't blame you for sticking up and going back and forth with somebody, because they would have, they say that, oh yeah, we'll just get we'll fix it in the end. And then 5 weeks later to say, hey, you're sending you out the artillery or, infantry. And you're like, wait a minute. What'd you say? Oh, I don't remember saying that. So good for you for sticking up for yourself, man. A lot of people might just swallow their instinct and just say, okay, no problem. But man, it'll bite you in the ass no matter where you are, in the world. So good for you. What was it like for when you guys went to your first duty station? Where'd you guys end up going? I know you guys got a lot of deployments, a lot of different commands, but talk a little bit about once you guys got done with your school, where you guys went off to and how that was for you.
Yeah, I think officially my first duty station was Norfolk, Virginia, but I picked my ship knowing that it was going to home port transfer down to Mayport, Florida. So I only spent a few months in Virginia going to school and then went down to Florida. But I think within a month or two of being there, we deployed. So I was pretty much on my ship, on deployment, or on some sort of surge for my entire first tour.
Where'd you end up deploying to, and how was it being on a ship? Did you want to do that when you thought about, seeing the world? You said, oh, I'm going to love the ship life, or was it something that you had to grow upon?
Yeah. So looking back, I was kind of the idiot who said, I don't want to be on a ship, but I'm still going to join the Navy. But in reality, the idea of becoming an intelligence officer was always kind of the goal for me. But at the academy at that point in time, they did not graduate directly into the intelligence community. You had to be medically disabled to a certain point to even get that, because it's considered a restricted line officer. Funny enough, at the very end, when we were figuring out, hey, what can you actually commission into, I had some medical issues and was so borderline that it was completely up to the flight surgeon as to which way I would go. And my only option at that point was surface warfare officer, which was my last choice. So going into the surface warfare community was not something that I had intended on doing. So when I got to ship selection, I decided to choose a ship that was going to deploy right away so I can get my qualification and then hopefully laterally transfer down the line. Obviously, that didn't happen with all of the medical stuff I faced when I was actually in the fleet, but that's kind of the trajectory of how I got there. Did I love it? Absolutely not. We deployed to the Middle East. We did a European deployment. The port visits were my favorite part, but those are also few and far between. I knew at that point I still loved the travel, but being on a ship was never going to be a long-term solution for me.
What was one of your favorite ports and why?
Ooh, very good question. Oh boy. Amsterdam was very eye-opening. I got to be shore duty at that point, so we got to escort a lot of sailors who were having fun in the red light district to and from the ship. And I think that was just one of the most mind-blowing experiences for a 23-year-old who hadn't done a whole lot of travel in her life up to that point.
I would beg to differ and say Amsterdam is like more mind or eye closing. You know what I mean? They got going on over there, but no, yeah. But I mean, depending on how you look at it, I guess in the red light it could be eye opening, but with everything else they got going on there, man, people's eyes are probably getting shut on the daily. So that's cool. What'd you like in the Middle East though? Did you go to Dubai or like Qatar or anything like that? Anything cool?
We went to Jordan, Bahrain, and Oman, but we were very restricted in what we could do. So pretty sure we were only allowed to go to either like, hey, here's a tourist attraction, here's a tour, you're going on it, or there's like 2 different resorts in Oman that we were allowed to go to at that point. So there wasn't a lot of sightseeing. One of the most memorable experiences in Bahrain for me was actually going out with my Liberty buddies to one of the bars in the area and being mistaken for a hooker, because there's a lot of prostitutes there who are from Asian descent. And I went to the bathroom and was propositioned by a European tourist, to which I said, absolutely not. I don't know if I like it here that much.
Damn, yeah. A lot of people think that nothing really goes on in the Middle East, and I worked in Dubai, and I could say the same thing. I wasn't mistaken for a hooker gladly, but like, yeah, there's a lot of people that do that stuff over there, and they think it's so strict because it's an Arab nation, but at the same time, it's dark as well over there. So, yeah, that's crazy. It's crazy that you had to experience that. I'm surprised you didn't like choke them out or something like that. But you know how they get down. Matt, for you, what'd you end up getting into once you got done with flight school?
From the time I left Pensacola to checking in to the rack, when I finished at the rack, it was a month before I was on my first UDP, and UDP is the unit deployment program. And so I went from living the SoCal pilot life to living in, they call them barracks. We'll call it barracks. In Okinawa, Japan. And then within 2 weeks of getting to Oki, they plucked us up and said, okay, we're going to Korea. And so we did from Okinawa to Korea, did about 35 days in Korea and then back in Oki. And that was a complete just mind flip. You go from the school life to where you're flying every once in a while and you're with all your buddies, and if you're not flying, you're enjoying being a young lieutenant, to that was where I got my first exposure to the 18-hour workday, 7 days a week. But it was cool because if you weren't the one flying, you were helping the other buddies prep. And it was such an immersive experience to just get everybody on the same page. This guy's flying tomorrow. What do we got to do to get his brief ready? Hey, you go take weapons, you go take navigation, you go take weather, you go take systems. And everybody would disperse with our laptops sitting on a half turned over box of MREs, just working this thing out. And about every 45 minutes, the whole network would just drop. And so you'd sit there for 15, 20 minutes until all your tech came back on, and you'd start it up again. But then once the brief was given and we executed the mission, God, everything came together, and it was just like beautiful madness, beautiful chaos.
You like the food in Korea? So a lot of people say they got good food. I know you probably got on some soju too.
No, I don't. I didn't.
No. Or you just don't remember. Which one?
We left post twice.
Oh, damn.
Sorry, let me correct myself. We left post twice on the ground in civilian clothes. We flew off the list every day, but the 2 times that we got to go out, once was great. It was with all the buddies, big platform table full of food, family style. And then the other time was kimchi. It was a kimchi dinner. And call me uncultured, but that stuff is nasty.
I mean, they clean you out, though, man. You're going to clean you out.
Probiotics.
Yeah, right. Just give me a pickle. Just
you want pickle? No, man. They don't get down like that, man. You got to come back to Chick-fil-A on that. Get your manager job and get you all the pickles you want, man. You're good to go. Hey, Shannon, did you have sea legs or no?
A little bit. When we first got off the ship, it was kind of jarring, but my worst 24 hours were always the first 24 hours on the ship. I got seasick and I needed to sleep.
Okay. I could never do the Navy. I always tell Navy vets, I'm like, I couldn't do it. I can't do roller coaster. I can't change my mind. I'm not on that. I can't even sit in the back seat of a car. So I'm driving my Humvee in the Army, you know what I mean? Or something, MRAP or something. Yeah. But what was your guys' mindset? You go in your first duty station, you're on deployment, you're doing your job. Were you loving it? Were you hating it? Were you like, shit, I got to get out of here? Were you going to say, oh, am I making a career? What were you guys thinking at this point?
One day at a time. At that point,
Yourself.
like the rule was you tried to plan 2 flights ahead, right?
Okay.
But when you're flying every day, or at the bare minimum every day, and then off a day, and then every day after that, that's as far as you're looking, right? Maybe a week, maybe, but so much time was dedicated to getting the mission ready. That's about as far as you can look. Now, once you got into the planning section and you were looking big picture for the squadron, that's different. But as far as your individual work and your individual missions, yeah, maybe 2 or 3 days is as far as you can go.
2 days ahead. Yeah. What about you, Shannon?
I'm on the opposite side because it was not something that I loved doing. So I was trying to plot my escape the entire time while getting qualified. So it was a mix of just trying to survive, trying to make it, and trying to figure out how to get to the next thing. I always had becoming an intel officer in mind, so I was doing everything in my power to build my transfer package, including going back to school and trying to navigate that all still attached to a ship. So it was pretty hard work, but I had a plan until I didn't.
Okay. So what'd you guys do next for your next follow-on assignment? Was it what'd you do after Japan, and what'd you have to do after your deployments on the ship? What was next for you guys?
Yeah, so for me, I had to go to another ship, and I went to one of the brand new LCS ships out of Mayport, but they were still pre-commissioned. So everything that we were doing was getting ready for the ship to actually commission itself. There's also a very long training pipeline. I think it's about 6 months. So for surface warfare officers, your time kind of pauses for that 6 months, and your second tour doesn't start until after that schooling. However, for me, during that period where I was driving up and down between Rhode Island and Mayport is when I got into an accident. So the accident was bad enough that it screwed up my back pretty badly. I was in and out of the hospital or the medical center weekly, bi-weekly, something like that for about a year. And during that time was then pulled from being on the ship's crew because there's no way I can actually walk up the stairs to the ship to being the public affairs officer for the entire LCS squadron out of Mayport, Florida, where I basically helped start up the Facebook group for them and reconfigured everything about public affairs on my own without any guidance, any instruction, or any schooling until finally I was separated from the Navy for just the accident.
So they charged you with standing up the PAO, I guess, branch of your unit, and then how did it go? I mean, from that point to the medical separation, what was the in between like? Did they give you notice? Did they say, "Hey, we might be medically separating you in 6 months, a year"? What'd that look like?
Hurry up and wait. So we didn't know it was an option. The medical officer told me that, hey, this is likely what will happen based on your conditions, based on everything that's happening. So I had a lot of balls in the air, basically. I was in and out of medical, trying to get my back taken care of, and I had to play the Navy medical game, which was getting steroid injections in my back every single week, and I didn't have a choice. So it was just, you have to do this protocol before we can do any other interventions. It's not working. It's not working. We're still going to put you through that. You're too much of a lowly worm to really be able to have a say in it. At the same time, the admin process was going on for the medical board, and that kind of looks like you submit your paperwork and you're just kind of in a holding pattern until somebody in Big Navy comes back and tells you what their findings are. From that point, my findings were obviously I was not qualified anymore to be in the Navy. And so I had a 30-day heads up of, hey, in 30 days, you're going to be out. You're signing your DT-214, you're leaving. But everything up until then was back and forth. My command was asking me all of the same questions. I couldn't answer them because I didn't know anything that was going on. So from their perspective, I was still full-time PAO, which thankfully I figured out a way to do a lot of my work from my phone. So even if I did have appointments, I was kind of working remotely to juggle everything because there was no written protocol of how this is supposed to work. So in a way, it was kind of like having two full-time jobs, but also a third because I was interviewing, but I didn't know when I would be able to start with a brand new job. I just knew that at some point I might get the really short heads up of you're out, you're on your own at that point. So there was no help coming from anywhere within the Navy to help my next chapter, even though I kind of knew that it was inevitable.
That's wild because they're charging you with you keep working till the day you're going to be done and say, hey, there's no one there. Say, hey, go take care of yourself. Hey, go to these classes and make sure, you get yourself taken care of. I mean, there's so many questions I have to ask. Like, did you get seen for VA disability? That's one question I got. The second question I got is, did you ever think about saying, hey, shit, now I'm not able to be on a ship. Am I actually able to be intelligence now instead of being a PAO? Like, instead of running a Facebook group, can I actually do what I want to do now because I have an unfortunate accident? And like, I mean, the third question, I guess I don't want to bombard you, but it's just crazy that people go through stuff like this and you're giving your time, you're giving your service to these organizations. And at the end of the day, a lot of people don't care. They're just going to churn you out and get the next person in line to fill the void. So what was your mindset like going through everything that you were going through?
Yeah, so I did try to see if I can lat transfer into PAO at that point, or I don't think it's called a lat transfer. There's a completely different process. But with everything that happened, it was kind of just my only option was to get out, and I didn't even have that option. It was just medical said, "Hey, you're not qualified for any of this. You're not qualified for worldwide deployment. Therefore, Intel is no longer an option."
Wow.
I think there might have been a fight if I wanted to stay in and be HR, but I didn't know anything about that at that point. So for me, it was there's more of a chance on the outside to get into the Intel community. Why don't I continue working on that? But you're right, there wasn't nobody helping me on either side. And that plays a lot into all of the veteran advocacy work that I've done since then, because the Navy, and I'm sure all the other branches, do such a terrible job of helping you get out, because you're talking to commanders who have been in for life, and their mindset for the most part, and not to their fault, is you're going to continue to stay in. We only know of one path. We know of your career path, and it's in the Navy until you're retired. But the funny thing looking back is, well, everybody's going to get out at some point. You can retire from the military, but you're not actually retired. So most people are having to find a job anyway. So all of that is granted right now in retrospect, but in the moment it was extremely stressful. It was just me on my own trying to figure it out without any guidance.
That's crazy too, because you're right. The commanders are so worried about the mission at hand that guess what? They're going to have to get out one day too. And if they don't have someone to help them, they might be lost as well. So hopefully, the narrative changes in that aspect, because no matter if you do, like, you get kicked out in the training because you got hurt and you did not even a year, or you do 40 years as a general, you got to figure out how to transition out and become successful, because we all got to have a next mission, or you're just going to be stuck, in a rut, or in between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah.
Matt, for you, lead us up to your accident, and you're pretty much where Shannon's at right now, and what the rest of your time in the Marines look like.
When I came back from that first deployment, shortly after that, there was a new MOS that was called Strategic Communications and Operations, what's referred to as ComStrat. And it was the merger of public affairs and combat camera. And I was given the opportunity to go and participate in that when I came off the flight line.
So the first accident,
I had a jet ski accident that put me in the hospital for a long time, and over the course of about a year, closed my flight career.
Okay. What'd you hit, a great white?
Mission Bay. I was doing a run, and I hit the wake of another ship. And
Damn.
when I came down, my body hit the jet ski instead of hitting
Oh.
water. Yeah, don't do that. 10 out of
Nah,
10.
it hurts even when you hit water, dude. But hitting the jet ski, I'm sure that doesn't feel any better, dude. I've fallen off a couple jet skis, and yeah, that shit does not feel good.
Yeah. So that was when the Navy rebuilt my left foot, and total recovery time. We looked at my career track and said, you will not get to fly in the way that you want to continue flying. You'll get to go be a test pilot, which is not. There's a difference between a test pilot and a tester. I was going to go be a tester, which is the guy who turns the helicopter on, flies it 2 laps in the pattern to make sure that the rotors are balanced, and then comes back and land. There's just no progression in it. And so with the new MOS that was coming out, and one of my mentors at the time said, you need to look at this. If your intent is to continue being a Marine, you need to look into this. So I did. I said, okay, cool, let's go investigate this. And I really enjoyed it. Comstrat was a really unique opportunity for me. I got to deploy twice under that MOS, once to Kuwait, which was a wonderful experience because I got there in January of 2020. COVID kicked in March of 2020.
Gosh.
And Camp Arif John completely locked down. And in order to leave the post, you had to have authorization from an 06.
Okay.
So just think about that for a minute, how hard it is to get the colonel to sign something.
Yeah, you're not getting off, pretty much, is what you're saying.
No. And in addition to that, everything on base shut down. The gym shut down, the USO shut down, all of the restaurants on base, but there's not a whole lot there. Everything shut down, including the chow hall. And we were beautifully blessed to get to live on MREs for about 3 months. And
the bathrooms must have shut down too when you're on MREs that long, man. It must have not had nothing going on, dude. That's crazy, man.
Yeah,
that's wild.
But it was what you do when you're in the middle of the desert. You just exist and grind to the next mission. And our primary mission was combating Daesh or Daesh, and they were executing a lot of rocket campaigns. And so that was my mission to control that narrative and make sure that the American people and the other members of the coalition were accurately informed of what we were doing in that fight. Then came back, and another MOS opportunity opened up for me, which was an OIE, or Operations in the Information Environment Planner, which sounds boring as hell, but it gave me the opportunity to do my final deployment into the Pacific, and close out with force reconnaissance out of Guam. And that was a really, really cool opportunity. Finished that out, and when I came back, not too long after that, about 6 months after that, is when I had my motorcycle wreck. And my advice to anybody who rides, I don't care if you are a weekend warrior or if you're commuting every single day, for the love of God, put your armor on, because
Absolutely.
That is the reason that I am here. I was in full gear, and a woman came into my lane, didn't even see me, barely touched my handlebar, and I was grinding down the freeway.
Jeez.
Now, that all being said, having the accident put me in a position where I had to learn the Navy, Marine Corps medical system, because when the accident happened, that we all knew was going to be a career ender. And fortunately, Shannon and I were together at the time, and she sat me down and said, okay, now is the time for you to prepare all of your post-service health benefits. You got to learn to navigate the VA. And so that was the last few months of my active duty time, was getting my VA package together. And having gone through it, anybody else who is in that right now or has left service and they haven't gone through that, God bless you, because it's grueling. And it's not an efficient system. It's not designed to be efficient. In fact, it's almost designed to deter you from continuing to do it. Now, what I will say to that also is, don't quit, don't stop, appeal, and fight for it. Because if you don't have anything else.
Seriously.
Seriously. And so, I don't say that to say you should strive to live off of your VA pension. That's not it at all. But what it is during that immediate time after service, say that's 6 months to a year, that gives you enough to function while you are preparing yourself for the next phase, whether it's career, entrepreneurship, travel, education, right? Those are the things that supplement from the VA will help with.
Oh yeah, absolutely, dude.
Yeah. So
what was your mindset like when you found out you couldn't fly anymore?
When I left DC, because I had to go to a board, and when I left DC, I called my boss at the time. I said, we're not going to fly anymore. And he said, okay. And within 2 days, I didn't process it. I just didn't. I said, well, this sucks. Time to move on to the new thing. Right. And I give a lot of credit to Shannon, because now, years later, she has made me go through and do the hard work of saying, hey, I bet that was a pretty crappy experience. Let's work through that. No, that's all buried. I put that away. That was years ago. No. If you're going to be this attentive father and this present husband, you need to figure out the things that hurt you back then. And so we've done a lot of work to process all of that. And I give her a lot of credit for kind of holding my feet to the fire and saying, it's okay for you to feel crappy about what happened. And now coming into being a dad, it's a whole new reality, because at some point I'm going to have a little girl who comes up to me who has had to go through something hard, terrible, and I'm going to have to be able to kind of hold her hand and walk her through that. So perspective changes as soon as you put on the Daddy AF t-shirt.
Heck yeah, you're right about that. Now on the flip side, give me one of your favorite stories about flying when you're in the service.
Oh man. Okay. It's actually how I got my call sign. So my call sign's measle. And a measle inject is something that you put into the training scenario to try and test or confuse the other trainees. And it's a mission sequence of events list. And I got it because I was flying with our S4 officer. My buddy was flying with our OPSO, and my instructor, every time we were reading grids back from the 9 line, he said, hey, when you read the 8-digit grid, read 9 numbers, just add another number. And I was like, okay. Mind you, this is Boot Lieutenant Matthews. And I did it about 3 times, and finally over the net, not over common, but over net for the entire range to hear. I hear this, Basil, if you fucking give me another 9 numbers again, I'm gonna rip you out of your cockpit. And I just hear my instructor in the back, not over the radio, but in this extremely loud aircraft, just dying laughing. And I'm like, I don't know what just happened. I don't really understand. So we get back, we land, we're doing the debrief, and Opso comes up to me in front of the entire ready room. He's like, if you ever measle me again, I'll fucking kill you.
And from that day on, you were measle. All right, now to flip the script back to like Shannon, you were kind of the guinea pig, right? I gotta really ask this. I should have asked already. How did you guys meet? And like when in your career did you guys meet?
No, you go.
Which story?
The real one.
The one where we were practicing shark dentistry and I shot the shark that was about to eat his arm, or the one where it was hippo dentistry and about the same thing, hippo was about to eat your arm and I hit him.
Yeah, she shot him with a tranquilizer dart, and that was the only reason that I didn't get hauled out in the middle of the ocean. And so I gotta at least buy this girl a drink.
Yeah, if our kid is gonna see this, this is the story that we have to go with right now. But
fair enough. That's fair enough.
We met about 2 years ago in San Diego. I ended up there on a whim of my own, packed up all my stuff and drove across the country in the middle of COVID and ran into this one, was completely over dating and thought that all men were just crap until this one convinced me to go on one last first date where he talked my ear off for about 3 hours. So if this goes long, I'm really sorry. I should have warned you.
No, you're good. You're good.
But that was kind of that. And the adventures just kept going from there on out. I think about 9 months later, we were engaged or married. And here we are 2 years after meeting with baby about to pop out any minute now.
There we go, and here we are.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool though, because I didn't know if you guys would have you guys met at the beginning of your service and you guys kind of just went your separate ways. So that's good to know. But I mean, everything happens for a reason. Because I was going to say, Shannon, you're kind of like the guinea pig about navigating the VA system and figuring stuff out on your own. So I'm sure you're like a blessing in disguise for your husband, for Matt, and for everyone else that you've tried to help and counsel. Because like you said, it's uncharted waters. And no one knows what it's like getting out unless you know someone that's done it. You know what I mean? And then kind of like when you're in the military, the whole stigma about being weak or being, whatever, swallowing your pride, or, for flying, essentially, I've talked to several pilots, and if you go and talk about your issues, you're pretty much canceling your flight path. You know what I mean? Like, hey, I got this going on, I got this. Well, are you fit to fly anymore? So it's like essentially you're canceling your own dream of becoming a pilot or your career path. So being that guinea pig and just going through it, both of you guys, what would you say some tips and tricks are for people navigating the VA, or just getting what you deserve on like a first time go, or at least before you leave the service, to set yourself up, and not only yourself but your family, for success?
First things first, every little cut and scrape and cough that you have, go to medical, get it documented.
Seriously.
But at the same time, just start documenting everything on your own, because there's not really a designated person who helps you file your VA claim. I did it wrong the first time. I didn't have the help and guidance. And I'm still going back and doing appeals right now to this day, whereas Matthew gets out and he gets 100% permanent and total on his first try. So there's a way to do it. If you go to the VA and you are claiming all of the things, you get to your CMP appointment, it's your worst day. Just everything that you're saying, everything that you're putting on your paper, it's your absolute worst day, and that's what you go off of. Not, hey, today I'm feeling a little bit better, because then that blows back on you. It's not a pride thing anymore. This resource is out there, and it's available. You just really have to advocate yourself to the point where it might feel a little weird. Like you're saying a lot of things and you're nitpicking at all of the small details of what could possibly go wrong or what hurts and what didn't and what's impacting me now. But if you don't do that later on down the line, when all of the issues you had in your 20s are flaring up in your 40s, 50s, 60s, then you're not going to have the coverage that you need to be able to manage a lot of those problems that pop up later.
Yeah. What about you, Matt?
You cannot start too early. So this is for the guys that are still in. We'll do in and then we'll do out. I'm coaching one of my peers. He's a fellow captain. He's going to get out in about a year, and it's a matter of just go, do it, go get it on the record. Because in the eyes of the VA, it's just like when you go to a board for promotion, right? You've got 5 minutes to put your entire package in front of everybody who's looking, and then it's gone, right? You know, you spend days and hours prepping your package to get submitted. 5 minutes is how much they're going to look at, right? 6 if it's a long one. So put the time in, make the time to go to the appointments. If your command is pushing back, go to whoever it is in your command that is on your side and carve the time out, right? So that's one. Start as early as you can. If you're already out and you're looking back and you're saying, you know what, maybe I didn't get horrifically injured. Maybe I wasn't crushed in this way. Maybe I didn't have this accident. A big one that I keep hearing is, well, I wasn't hurt in combat.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter, dude. In service.
Right. And so I just counseled a gentleman, Marine. He got out in 1984, and he's just now starting his package, right? Now, for perspective, okay? If you leave service prior to 20 years without special exception, right? You get no compensation once you're out, right? You get no pension equivalent, okay? Right. Unless you're receiving something from the VA. And I don't care what you did in the military. If you were a desk secretary for a year, or if you were an artilleryman for 30 years, you know, one very extremely physical job, one not physical job. Whatever you did, there are things that are going to come up, just like Shannon said, down the road, right? So get an advocate. It's free. Pick up the phone, 1-800, I don't know, VA help.
827-1000, I think is the VA number. Yeah, there you go.
And you say, hey, I'm a vet. I didn't do a claim when I was in. I need to start the process now. Because even at 10%, which is the lowest rating that you can get, there are things that are guaranteed to you for the rest of your life, right? And it's not just you, right? I don't look at it as just me anymore, because it's not. It's what coverage does Shannon get? What coverage does our baby get? Right? And so big picture, especially up and coming parents, that should influence your decision on how much time you are investing into this. And, you know, look at it like you're spending time on a full-time job, right?
Right.
Because once you receive that rating, that's a payment.
There you go.
So, yeah.
Now, you make some great points, both of you guys, and I want to touch on a few of them real quick. The first one is, like you said, you only got 5 minutes. Realistically, you're not even going to ever meet the people that are going to rate you, because you're meeting with either a VA provider or someone that they have like a third party now that they're so backlogged. and that's a whole different story. But either way, like Shannon said, it's on your worst day, folks. It's not going there, oh my God, I'm doing great today. Guess what? They're writing all of that down, folks. They're writing all of that down, and that's what they're going to put in your file. And then when you say, oh, wow, I only got 50% for PTSD, well, what'd you go in there and tell them? Well, I went in there and told them I'm doing great today. I went in there, I told them I'm doing awesome. No, it's a double-edged sword, folks. You got to go in there and swallow your pride and put it all on line. Because what if, because why not? And then like Matt said, start today, call 1-800-827-1000 and tell them I want to do an intent to file. Start that day right now. It gives you 365 days to put your claim in. So you don't have to put the claim in tomorrow. But if you're thinking about getting started, do it right now. Stop making excuses. You didn't make excuses when you're in the service, so stop making them when you're out. Because the 10%, like you said, can open the doors to VR&E, school benefits, the list goes on, so we could save that for a little bit later. But I wanted to ask you guys next, what did you guys have planned for when you got out? Shannon, I mean, you were dealing with the FBI, Google, consulting, you getting wined and dined, and you said you traveled a grand total of 24 hours in 2 years, which must have been miserable, so I would like for you guys to start touching on a little bit of what you guys had planned on after service and how all that went for you.
Yeah. You want me to go first?
Yeah, you go first.
So I'll shorten my last 5 years, but getting into the Intel community was front and center for me. I had gotten my graduate degree at this point, so I had all of the prereqs checked to become an Intel analyst, which I thought was going to be the sexy James Bond job. Got to FBI Cyber Division, and it was working in a windowless room with a lot of people who did not like to interact with other humans. So my bubble was burst pretty quickly. Rather than trying to find more of a operations job at that point, because I was still dealing with just the back residuals, I decided, hey, this is a perfect opportunity to go out and try something new. I don't remember how I stumbled on management consulting, but I found a recruiting program for women through one of the top firms, was wine and dined by them, flown out to Boston, stayed at a really nice hotel, went through the interview process, and was like, oh, this is cool, consulting. You can jump from project to project and never really have to choose what you wanted to be when you grow up. Long story short, I ended up at the only firm that gave me an offer, which was Accenture, and I landed on the Google account right away. That was kind of something I half intended to do, because when I was interviewing for all of the consulting firms, I also decided to just drop my name in the hat for a Google position, full-time position, made it to final round interviews, got so close, but just didn't get the offer. So fortunately, one of my mentors / best friends and confidants to this day, who was my manager at Accenture, took me under her wing and led me through the company pretty well, promoted once within, and stayed on the Google account in digital marketing the entire time until, 2 years later, after applying to Google for 3 different jobs every 30 days or so, finally got another offer from them and went over full time. This was in the middle of COVID, and I started off as a sales development manager, supposedly based out of Chicago, but we were still working remote. And at this point, it had been about a year into COVID. My life was not anything that I expected it to be. It was a lot of isolation and just not being particularly happy. So I packed up all of my stuff, got rid of anything that didn't fit in my car, drove across the country to San Diego with my brand new laptop, and started working at Google in San Diego. Ended up having to switch jobs within the company because we had return to office happen. And thankfully found a fully remote position working in communications, and was also given the opportunity to lead veteran hiring programs at Google. Fast forward about a year into that, where I was working 2 full-time jobs again. Not that there's a pattern with that or anything. We went back home to Chicago for Chinese New Year with mom and dad, where opened my laptop and out pops a screen that said, hey, you've been laid off. Well,
Wow.
that kind of leads us to today. So I'll let Matthew continue his, and we can come together after that.
Kind of saw the writing on the wall. I was actually supposed to get an extension because I was on a medical board. After the accident, it was my EAS was supposed to get pushed 6 months. And so we were operating under that mindset until 2 days after my original EAS date. I got a phone call from my boss that said, your extension was denied by Headquarters Marine Corps. You're actually out. You're not an active duty Marine anymore.
And you were on leave.
We were on leave. We were driving back. It was a Sunday night, right? So anytime you get a call from the boss at 6:30 on a Sunday night, it's never good, right?
Not good. Yeah, exactly.
And I said, well, we back and forth. I went into the office that Monday in uniform, went to my XO, and my XO was like, you're not an active duty Marine anymore.
And your med board was canceled.
Oh, and by the way, your medical board, which was going to be the determining factor of your post-service medical benefits, was canceled. Completely just done.
What'd you say back to that?
You were in shock.
Yeah, I didn't know how to say something or do something that didn't involve just wanting to inflict personal harm on the people that were appointed to take care of me, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so I left. I left the building and came back the next day in civilian attire, because when you leave service, you've got to sign all your paperwork. You've got to get your DD-214. You've got to do all of your closing out stuff. Well, none of that was done.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. Did you clear post, go to CIF? Did you get all the signatures? And that's crazy, dude.
Yeah, we had to get that done in like 48 hours.
Yeah. Yep. And so we did. And the last conversation that I had, again, with the XO was, look, I understand that it's not your fault personally, but if this command can do this to a captain with over a decade of active service, please, for the love of God, do a better job with your junior Marines.
Seriously, dude. Even for you, even for everybody, that's a damn shame, to be honest with you, man. That's a shame. That's a shame.
Well, none of the VA stuff was taken care of at that point either. It was, I picked him up from the airport. We were driving home, and hey, Matthew, I think you're signing your DD-214 like tomorrow.
Yeah. So, as you know, kick in the face as that was, we took a couple of days to kind of take a deep breath and process. Shannon looked at me and said, we don't have to stay here. We were in Southern California, and she said, you're free. You are.
Yeah, one thing, at least you're free. Yeah.
Right. For the first time since you were 15 years old, you're not reporting to anybody. You're not having to ask permission to go outside of Liberty bounds. You're not having to call and do a check-in at 6:30 in the morning.
Your DD-214s are a golden ticket.
And that was when we looked at each other and said, well, now what? And, from the fire and the ashes, the new life is born. And that's where we kicked off the road trip. We jumped in my truck. We had a camper cab on the back of the truck, and we just started driving. We drove from our house in San Diego to my parents' house in Texas, from Texas up to Chicago, up into Canada, crossed all the way across Canada, which, by the way, that's a long, flat road trip. Just if you're going to go from Lake Michigan to the west coast of Canada, that is a lot of just.
That's long.
Yeah. We did Vancouver, and then we came down the west coast to California, back home, closed out the house and some of the sales and stuff that we had to do.
We sold everything we owned.
Sold the house, sold everything that was in the house, every piece of furniture, every piece of memorabilia. Like, the house was completely empty because the intent was to also sell the house. And so we got it ready to sell and drove from California back to Texas again, hopped on a plane from.
We sold the cars.
Yeah.
Damn, you sold it all. Where'd you sell it at? Facebook Marketplace?
We Carvana the cars.
Yeah.
Carvana, there you go.
The same day that we got rid of the last car, we hopped on a plane to Chicago, said bye to my parents, and took a one-way flight to Denmark.
Yep.
That's pretty badass, though. I can't lie and say it's not. Looking back on it, that you guys are gonna have an awesome story for your daughter, and for your other kids if you have more. So, how'd you guys feel like when you did all that stuff? You literally got no baggage. You got your DD-214s. You're like, you know what? Screw it. We're going to why Denmark, and then talk about what you guys did from there.
My dad actually used to work and live in Denmark long before I came along. I don't know how the seed itself was planted. Probably had to do with cheap airplane tickets, and there was also a music festival on.
That's right.
I think
there you go.
4th. So we said, hey, why don't we go here first and figure it out from there? We didn't have an agenda for the rest of Europe, so there was a lot of learning along the way where we had to figure out how to get on cheap flights and how to do this without burning out. And oh, by the way, I think I was, 5 or 6 months pregnant already at this point. So what can we feasibly do? A lot of our purpose there was, one, figure ourselves out, but also figure out how we want to bring baby into this world. A lot of our mindset at this point is we want to stay as far away from the U.S. medical system as possible, because we both got pretty much dicked over by it when we were getting out of the military and trying to deal with all the residuals. So a lot of the European mindset is birth is a natural phenomenon. People have been doing it for thousands of years. We're not going to treat this like a medical problem. We're going to treat this like this is just a part of life and take much more of a laissez-faire attitude towards maternity care, but at the same time providing all of the healthy nutrients that you need, because the food in Europe is a lot better than it is in the United States, just a lot less pesticides and things like that. Unfortunately, we didn't plan too far ahead. So even though we were jumping around and doing all of the things that we loved, in order to stay there through the baby's due date, which is here in a couple of weeks, we would have had to get a visa, or we would have had to go to a non-European country for a little bit and then come back. But I was starting to get a little bit too late in the pregnancy, and we kind of had a come to Jesus moment, or heart to heart, where we said, hey, this is the first grandbaby. We want her to be near her grandparents. So we made the decision at the very, very end of the trip to come back and take a pause in Chicago for a little bit.
So you tell me you don't love Western medicine, where you get a kid and the next day they're trying to inject them with all the vaccines they come up with for everyone to get paid. You guys don't like that? What? No way, man. No way. Western medicine, you gotta love it.
Yeah, even here we're planning for a home birth. Thankfully, everything has gone medically normal up until this point, and we're in the final countdown. So we've got our crazy midwives and doulas who are just going to come to our apartment, and she's going to come out however the hell she wants to.
That's how they did it back in the day. I think my mom was born on the couch or something like that. So, they're just taking stuff now and putting a twist and turn to it all. So good for you guys sticking with your gut and doing something that's out of the norm now, but it's quite normal, to say the least. Yeah. What was Matt, what was some of your favorite memories from the trip? Where'd you guys go? Like, name the countries you guys went to, and you guys were also talking to the couples that were that were parents, right? And what'd you guys get out of that?
My favorite place that we went was Scotland. We did. Okay. We rented a camper and we drove. We were on the road for about 5 days in Scotland, and dude, it was just beautiful. It's peaceful. It was the people were very receptive. They also spoke English, which was kind of nice.
That's good.
Countryside was beautiful. Food was beautiful. You could move at a relaxed pace. So 10 out of 10 recommend Scotland. Second favorite place was Iceland. It's like being on the moon. The terrain is completely different. There's waterfalls every 4 or 5 miles that are hundreds of feet high, and you can hike up them and go around them, and you can camp. We got a camper there, and every night we camped, we were within 50 meters of just these absolutely radiantly beautiful waterfalls. And we didn't even
go there lights.
We didn't. We did not see the Northern Lights.
Damn, you got to go back, man. It's all good.
We'll take baby.
There you go. Exactly. What about you, Shannon? What were some of your favorite spots?
Those two are also at the top of my list. If we were to actually live and work in Europe, I think Copenhagen was probably our favorite city. Everybody's so fit. Like, it is one of the fittest cities in the world. There's a yoga class every block pretty much. The food was delicious. There's a lot of eccentricities, so a lot of people watching, which is one of my favorite sports. We went to a little island called Rhodes in Greece, which was really nice. They had one of our favorite restaurants. And it was good to have a week of doing absolutely nothing because I was sick and it was very warm out there. But yeah, I think those are probably on the top of my list, but there's still so much more that we have to explore.
Absolutely. What are you guys up to now? I know you guys are doing social media, doing some merchandise, and other than the pregnancy and you welcome your new daughter to the family, what's next for you guys?
Right now, full steam ahead is taking care of baby and taking care of mommy. Second to that is we are putting our book together, and the book is basically a tactical dad's guide.
Okay.
Short, big word or small words, big pictures, things that
sassy.
Yeah, sassy. She's my editor, so it's going to be sassy.
Oh, you're going to be good. You already know.
Things that I did during her pregnancy that she gave me feedback and said, I like that you did this. I appreciate that you did this. Information that we pulled from dozens of couples, people that were dating for a couple of weeks, all the way. The oldest couple that we interviewed has been married to each other for 62 years.
Damn.
And
longer than we've all been alive almost, dude. All three of us.
And all of that from perspectives around the world, around the United States, coming together in one very, very concise, easy to read document. And the intent of it is, it doesn't matter if you didn't even graduate high school or if you have a doctorate in higher education. As a guy, you're going to understand what I'm putting in this, right? It's not a 400-page what to expect when you're expecting novel that you're going to read 2 chapters of and just be done with. No. Each page is broken down so that you can understand it. You can say, oh, hey, I bet if he did this and his wife liked it, I could probably do something pretty similar and my wife will like it.
So you're not trying to be the next Dr. Spock?
No.
No, I'm messing with you, dude. That dude got like 1,000-page books. What's the name of the book going to be? You got it yet, or are you still thinking?
We're holding that one close to the chest.
Okay.
The release date is going to be Father's Day of this year.
Where can they find it at?
You can find it on our website at hoponandholdon.com.
It'll be on Amazon.
It'll also be on Amazon. It will be on all of our social media, which is respectively, Instagram is at hoponandholdon. Facebook is Hop On and Hold On. And our Gmail, if anybody wants to reach out, is hoponandholdon@gmail.com.
Okay. What's next for you, Shannon? Besides having that baby, I know you're ready. I know you're ready.
So this is actually a group project. For me, a lot of it was watching Matthew just obsess over being a good husband and father. And it's so rare to the point where I was like, hey, you probably need to write this stuff down in a very digestible way where people can say, this is exactly what you do to help your wife during her pregnancy. I'm doing this for the first time. He's doing this for the first time, but I think he's doing something right. And I come from a comms background, so I get to help him edit everything that he's doing, help guide the creative process. And I'm also the illustrator because in my free time during all of this, I've been working on the blog posts and making random stickers. And so we were like, hey, oh yeah, I drew
There you
that
go.
too. So, hey, why
Heck
don't we
yeah.
actually work together on this and make this our passion project? If we're going to be hibernating in Chicago for a while, it's something that we can do together while baby is here, while feeding her and doing everything in between. So, I'm excited to work with my husband. I picked my teammate.
I'm glad you guys are a pretty badass team from what I've seen so far. So I'm glad to get to know you guys and put your story out there. And also, I'm glad that you guys are having your child out of the military. To be honest with you, it's not you know people in the military that have kids. It's a horrible lifestyle. You got to drop your kid off at 6 o'clock in the morning, go to PT, go to work all day, fly 18 hours. You're not going to be there much. You guys are going to be able to embrace that fully. And I think you guys made a good decision to be close to family because I got a son. He's already 7, going on 8, and you're definitely going to need to call in some reserves for that because you need your you time too, and it's a lot. So
Yeah.
I'll be looking out for the book, and I wanted to just say thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your experiences. I think you guys have a badass story. So for any other couples or anyone that's a military veteran, I put my email up there. You guys can tap in and get you guys on here. I think you guys set the standard for dual military couple. And I'm looking forward to see what you guys do in the future and do big things, keep helping veterans, keep changing the narrative because, you guys got thrown through the grinder, and I feel like I did too, and that's why I kind of started this podcast. So I'm glad you guys reached out, and I'm happy to have you guys on the team as well. So just wanted to say thank you and open it up to you guys if you had anything before we shut it down for the day. So the ball's in your court.
My biggest thing is thank you for having us on here and being willing to flex and having 2 people instead of the normal one, but also thank you for sharing all of these stories. I think the more that you can show how vastly different our paths and our life journeys are, the more people you can reach and the more people you can inspire. So anything that we can do to help you out, please let us know.
Okay, appreciate that. What about you, my man?
Dude, I can't top that.
You got to do. Okay, real quick before we shut it down. Talk about the thing you sent me in the text message about the RV part, the property in California, dude.
Yes. Okay. So prior to us making our departure, we had established a company called Maven's Landing, and Maven's Landing is a mobile tiny home community. If you it currently located in Fallbrook, California, about 5 minutes from Camp Pendleton, about 45 minutes from San Diego. If anyone listening is in that area, knows a military couple, knows a military family, veteran family, police, fire, teacher. Both of our parents are teachers, so close and dear to our heart. Please, please, please send me a message. We will get you coordinated. And that's what the majority of our funding for anything that we sell merchandise-wise is going back into the next location for Maven's Landing.
Yep. So this is for if you have a van or an RV and you need somewhere to park. We've got the slip set up. It's a very safe location. So it's there. We just wanted to share it far and wide.
Okay, appreciate you guys sharing that, and thanks so much for coming on. If you guys made it this far, hopefully you guys can drop a comment of your favorite part of the episode. Like, subscribe to the channel. That way we can reach more people. Together we can change the narrative. So let's do it together. And I hope everyone has a blessed day. Be great at everything you do, and don't give up. Take care.
Hop on